All right, welcome back to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. We're focusing on their latest exhibit, 60 years of pro hockey in Winnipeg. Rick Brownlee of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame joins us. And when we talk about 60 years of pro hockey, Rick, that goes back before the Winnipeg Jets. Who were some of the teams in Winnipeg before the Jets came around?
Definitely does. I think the first pro hockey team of the era that we're looking at here was the Winnipeg Warriors. And the Warriors had a bunch of ex-NHLers, Billy Mosienko, Spider Mazer, Gary Alcorn, Freddie Shiro, guys like that. They came back home and played some really good hockey, and they won an Edinburgh Cup in the Western Hockey League back in the late 50s.
So the Jets then came around to the WHA in 1972 and soon won a bunch of championships. For those of us too young to remember or who weren't born like myself, how good was this Jets team of the 70s in the WHA?
I was fortunate enough to be an usher back in those days, so I got to see a lot of these games. And I would say that certainly in the mid-70s, when the Swedish and Finnish invasion came with Anders Ulf and Hexi Rioranta, Veli-Pekka Katola, all these crazy names that Winnipeggers had to get used to, I would say it was on a par. They would have finished top 4 or 5 against any NHL team, would have put them up to that, because they had a skating style and fluidity to them, a magic chemistry that I think most people over 50 would speak glowingly of.
And then they made that move to the NHL in the 1980s. Many remember the 80s for Gretzky and the Oilers winning all those championships. The Jets had some pretty good teams as well. If Gretzky and the Oilers weren't around, where do you think the Jets would have ended up some of those years?
Yeah, it's kind of tough, and people can relate to it nowadays being in the Central Division with all the strength that's there. But in the 80s, we were in a division called the Smythe Division, and probably the 3rd or 4th best team in the entire league. Unfortunately, the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames were also in the Smythe Division. So if you did manage to get by one, you had to try and get by the other. And I think back in 85, 86, around that era, we had 6 players that scored 20 goals or more, and really good teams, and just never seemed to be able to get over the hump. The one time we did and beat the Calgary Flames, Jamie McCowan cross-checked Dale Howard-Chuck in the ribs, and that was all she wrote. We sort of whimpered out in the next round against Edmonton. But great memories of those days.
Still bitter about that, it sounds like.
It's not too bitter, yeah.
So much cool stuff, though, on display at this exhibit. How long did it take to gather all this stuff and put it together to make it on display for everyone?
Well, we've had 2 summer students actually researching this, so probably the better part of 2 years in looking it together. And a lot of the stuff that's in here is in our collection. Some of it is stuff that True North and the Winnipeg Jets have loaned us for the 2.0 version. And a lot of it is in private collectors, especially the jerseys and things like that. So these are things that are normally residing in somebody's basement, and they're on display here at the Hall of Fame until the end of April.
All right, more from the 60 Years of Pro Hockey exhibit coming up, but first we head to Fort Richmond Collegiate to take a look at a human library. Check it out.